Hi there! In this video, you will learn several methods to analyze connectivity and diversity for urban areas with a high level of residential diversity. And to analyze connectivity and diversity, it's important to also make use of diverse methods. And I will illustrate this with a case. It's an area where I have done research. It's in Rotterdam, and the neighborhood is called Schiemond. In this research, to understand connectivity within an area with high level of residential diversity, you can make use of the concept called identification. Identification means that a small part of your identity is shared with someone else. For example, when you're someone that visits the library, you can identify yourself as a library user, same as someone else that's also within the library. Or when you're a citizen of Rotterdam, you can share the same identification with someone else that's also proudly being a citizen of Rotterdam. In this way, humans possess a broad and complex collection of identifications. An identity fluctuates through time and space as other humans and other spaces step on a different identification you possess. Within a neighborhood area, all these individuals with changing identifications together can be seen as liquid diversity. So diversity is not static. This way of looking at it helps to analyze an area in an inclusive manner. So instead of you make citizens' identity fixed, everyone's identification is fluid. It helps to enhance inclusivity, and it enhances the design opportunities to create connectivity within diversity. There are three concepts I've used within my research. Those are enclaves, roots and routines, and sense of place. And I will illustrate those three concepts with multiple methods. So the first concept, enclaves. Enclaves are urban areas with a distinguished design, use, and experience of space. And I've used multiple methods to analyze enclaves. The first method is I've used citizens within an interview to draw a mental map of their area. And for example, one citizen really draw distinguished areas, saying this area is an area where you can have new opportunities in life, and this one is more sightseeing, for example. Another method you can use is by using GIS or mapping, see what data is available. This shows the area with a very distinguished in levels of income. And this can also help you to see if there is a more distinguished area, and in this way, a very specific enclave. Another one is by observations. So you can just walk through the area, see how do you experience the area. Is there any difference in material, in atmosphere? You can take pictures, of course. And I've made like a collage on the map with these pictures to show the atmosphere, but still in a map. And these three combined, I made a conclusion map, which shows the enclaves. And I made use of three categories, which are non-public life, so it's an industrial area, then solitary, which are enclaves or urban areas where only the people come that really live there. And the third one is connecting. And this means that there are areas where also people from outside this area that don't live there step by or across the area. Okay, so concept 2, routes and routines. Routes are the physical infrastructure that's there, so the routes you can take, for example, a sidewalk or a bike path. And routines are actions a citizen does in a week or a day. For example, going to a supermarket, so there are like amenities, but it can also be places in the city or the neighborhood where you stay, so green spaces, squares. And it's interesting to map this for connectivity, because citizens are always moving in a dynamic way, of course. So when you know an area, you know the routes and the routines of many citizens very well. You know where there is a high concentration of movement and a high concentration on where people meet, and also where it's low. And this you can use within your design process. And the methods I've used to analyze this, first of all, it's just mapping. So see where are all the roads and where are all the supermarkets. The other one is also within interviews. I've asked citizens as well to draw their daily routines. So within a week, can you draw where you would go to? And the maps or the drawings combined with the interview text turned into a model with threads that map every citizen I've interviewed. And with this, you can easily see where there is like a strong concentration of routes and routines people take. Another method you can use is observations within the area, because even though maybe on a map you can see physical routes, but there are always these elephant paths that are still there. So maybe the physical infrastructure is not there, but people create their own routes. These methods also were followed up with a conclusion map. So on a higher scale, it shows the streets with a very strong, a medium, and a low capacity for connectivity. And on a lower scale, it shows the routes where people just pass by, the red lines, where people visit the area, which are the purple ones, and where the citizens that live there go there. And this can be interesting to see, where do all those three lines overlap? And it can be an interesting spot to design for connectivity. So concept 3, sense of place. Sense of place is an emotional or mental relationship you can have within the physical environment. So for example, you can really like a tree that's in your neighborhood, and this can also be shared by many within the neighborhood because there are like stories related to this tree, and it can be a very beautiful tree. So this together becomes a shared sense of place of that physical element, the tree, within the environment. And I've used multiple methods to analyze this for the neighborhood I've worked on. One is the mental maps I already showed you before. And this can be very interesting to see what people draw, but it can also be interesting to see what they don't draw. And these are usually not very strong elements for the sense of place. So in the neighborhood, it was interesting that the green spaces, which as an urban designer you would usually suspect these are the nice and characteristics elements of the area, were drawn by no one. And the areas which as an urban designer I would say they're not very designed very well, were actually really characteristics for the citizens there, because they visit, because of their routes and routines, this very often. The other one I used is asking to come up with metaphors. So for example, if your neighborhood would be a type of fruit, what kind of type of fruit would it be? And the answer on itself is not really important, but the explanations they give is very interesting. So always ask the question why. And if you collect those answers and you analyze the answers, some words occur more often than the other ones in their argumentations. And this can also show you the characteristics, the shared characteristics of the place. And together, you can come up with a conclusion in a conclusion map showing the elements that are very strong for the sense of place and the elements that are not. And you can use both within your design phase. So either enhance the areas that already have a strong sense of place, or actually see if you can create a new sense of place for the area in the areas that have a low capacity. And all three conclusion maps of the three concepts can be turned into one final conclusion map. And it will have the layers of enclaves with its borders, the routes and routines, and the sense of places. And you can use this within your design phase to either enhance the strong capacity that's already there or tackle the capacity where it's really low. And you can decide yourself which spots you find interesting to design, but every spot will have different stories and different use and experience of space. So really keep this local information in mind when you're designing for connectivity and diversity. So know for who to design, what is the story that's already there, and what's the use that's already there. Good luck.